My name is Cecile Warren. I'm 28 years old. My parents once told me, with perfectly straight faces, that I should pay $25,000 so my sister could finally give them a grandchild. They said it like they were asking me to pass the salt. For as long as I can remember, my family has treated me like a supporting character in a story that's supposed to revolve around my older sister, Olivia. Olivia is 31 now, but she's been the golden child since before either of us could spell the word favorite. We grew up in a small town, in a modest 2-story house my parents bought when they first got married. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. Creaky steps, ugly wallpaper, the works. From the outside, we looked normal. Inside, it was like living in a play where the spotlight only ever worked when Olivia was on stage. When I was about 12, I picked up archery. Random, I know, but our school had this tiny little program and I loved it. It was quiet, focused, just me, the bow, and the target. I liked having something that was mine. 2 weeks later, Olivia strutted into school with a brand new bow and a quiver that probably cost more than my entire gear. She didn't even ask me about archery before that. Suddenly, she was telling everyone, "Oh, I've actually been into archery too," like we shared this special bond. We didn't. That was the pattern. If I tried something, Olivia copied it, but always louder, flashier, with enough flair to make it seem like I was the one copying her. When I started a little journal in middle school and dared to write about a boy I liked, I made the mistake of hiding it under my mattress. She found it. The next day, she was leaning on his locker, laughing at every joke he made, flipping her hair like she was in a teen movie. I watched her from down the hall, stomach in knots, wondering if she was going to tell him what I wrote. She never did. She didn't have to. Just watching her flirt with him like I didn't exist was enough to get the message across. Even your crushes belong to me. If I changed my diet to try and eat healthier, suddenly she was on a wellness journey too. If I joined a club, she joined and took over. If I made a new friend, it was only a matter of time before Olivia was sitting next to them at lunch, laughing the loudest, knowing I was watching. It might sound petty from the outside. Sisters copy each other, right? At least that's what my parents said when I finally tried to explain how suffocating it felt. "Cecile, honey, sisters do this all the time," my mom said while she stirred something on the stove. "You're overthinking it." My dad glanced up from his phone, just long enough to add, "You should be happy your sister wants to spend time with you." They didn't see it, or they refused to see it. It wasn't about sharing hobbies. It was about the way Olivia turned everything I loved into a contest she had to win. And when I tried to pull away, she didn't just stop at copying. She escalated. By high school, she'd developed this talent for cruelty that looked harmless on the surface. In the hallway, she'd accidentally stick her foot out when I walked by. I'd stumble, books flying everywhere, and she'd immediately gasp and say, "Oh my God, Cecile, I swear I didn't see you," while her friends laughed into their sleeves. Sometimes it wasn't subtle at all. She'd smack my arm, hard, and when I glared at her, she'd shrug. "It was a dare," she'd say. "Don't be dramatic." One afternoon, a teacher pulled us both into an office. Apparently, someone had reported that Olivia was being too rough with me in the halls. For a second, I actually thought, this is it. Somebody finally noticed. But Olivia sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and started crying. "I don't know why she's saying these things about me," she sobbed, nodding toward me. She's been so angry lately. I think she's jealous." Jealous. I remember staring at her, stunned. She had self-inflicted bruises, little purple marks on her wrist, the side of her arm. She'd done that to herself. I knew she had. I'd walked in on her once, pinching her own skin, and then practicing her sad face in the mirror. My parents were called in. The school was concerned. But once my parents arrived, Olivia turned the performance up to 11. Tears, trembling voice, the whole tragic victim routine. "I just want my sister to love me," she whispered. By the time she was finished, I was the problem child with unresolved issues and anger I needed to work through. On the drive home, my mom didn't even look at me. My dad just said, "You need to stop this nonsense, Cecile. We won't have you attacking your own sister's character because you're feeling insecure." A small part of me shriveled up that day. The part that believed if I just explained myself clearly enough, my parents would finally see what was happening. That part never fully came back. From then on, Olivia's lies became more elaborate. She'd show up at school with a bandage here, a bruise there, and whisper to anyone who would listen, "It's fine. It's just Cecile. I don't want to get her in trouble." I became that girl behind my own back, the quiet one who might be mean at home, the introvert who kept everything inside while my sister told stories louder than I could defend myself. By the end of high school, I was exhausted, not just tired, soul tired. So I threw myself into my studies. I didn't have parents who saw me, but I did have brains and an internet connection. I worked my butt off, late nights, extra credits, endless practice tests. I wasn't trying to impress them anymore. I just wanted a way out. My grades earned me enough scholarships to cover my tuition. When I got the final package, I remember staring at the email, shaking, because it meant I could actually leave. Then my parents dropped the bomb. We were in the living room, my scholarship letter still on the coffee table. My mom looked oddly cheerful, my dad a little too relaxed. "Sweetie," my mom began, "your father and I have been talking." My stomach did that thing where it drops out before your brain knows why. "You know we've been saving for your college fund since you were little," Dad said, nodding at both me and Olivia. "Turns out you're all covered with scholarships. That's amazing. We're very proud of you." Proud. The word felt cheap in his mouth. "So," my mom continued, "we decided it makes more sense to give that money to Olivia. She needs it more right now. Her grades weren't where they needed to be. So she's going to take a gap year and then maybe try for community college or some courses. She'll need support." I just stared at them. "You're giving my college fund to Olivia?" I asked, to make sure I didn't hallucinate that sentence. Dad sighed, like I was being difficult. "It's our money, Cecile. We'll spend it how we see fit. You don't need it anymore. She does." "I might need it later," I said quietly. "Maybe I want to start a business one day, or use it for something important. You could keep it in my name. Why does she get both shares?" My mom's expression hardened. "You're independent. That's what you wanted, right? To prove you can stand on your own 2 feet? Consider this your chance." The message was clear. My hard work had become their excuse to erase what was supposed to be mine. That night I cried quietly into my pillow, not because of the money itself, but because it was proof of something I'd been afraid to say out loud. No matter what I did, Olivia would always come first. When college move-in day came, I packed my entire life into 2 suitcases and a couple of boxes. My parents didn't offer to help. No big send-off, no emotional goodbye. My dad handed me a folded check for emergencies. My mom hugged me with one arm, already glancing at her phone. I loaded everything into a rideshare and watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror, feeling strangely empty. If this were a movie, that's when the music would change, because that's when I met him. Adam. We crossed paths at a college welcome event. I was standing alone by a table of stale cookies, pretending to text someone, trying not to look as lonely as I felt. He just walked up, easy smile, hair a little messy, holding 2 cups of cheap punch. "You look like you need an exit strategy," he said, holding 1 cup out to me. "I can fake a conversation if you want." I laughed, an actual surprised laugh I hadn't heard from myself in a while. "I'm Cecile," I said, taking the cup. "Adam," he replied, professional, bad punch carrier. We started talking, and then we never really stopped. Over the weeks that followed, Adam became the first person who actually listened when I talked about my family. Not like a voyeur, not like he wanted gossip, just listening. His eyes didn't glaze over when I explained the Olivia situation. He didn't say, "She's probably just jealous," and leave it there. He asked questions. He believed me. When he finally asked, "Do you mind if I call you my girlfriend?" It didn't feel like a grand gesture. It felt like something that had been true for a while, finally getting its name. I wish I could say that was the moment everything got better. But my family has this talent for turning any good thing in my life into a test. And the first big test came around Christmas when my parents invited me home and I decided, stupidly maybe, that it was time they met Adam. I thought for one naive second that if they saw the person who actually loved me, they'd finally treat me like I mattered too. I had no idea that Christmas would become the first domino in a chain that would end with a $25,000 demand and the truth about where my money was really going. My parents had never met a single person I dated, partly because I didn't date much, but mostly because I never wanted to give them another thing to judge or control. But Adam was different, safe, real, solid in a way that made my ribs feel less tight around my heart. So when my parents invited me back home for the big family Christmas party, I made a decision that now feels like the turning point of everything. I told them I'd be bringing my boyfriend. They didn't say much on the phone, just a hesitant, "Oh, okay," from my mother. But I recognized the tone. Measured, calculating. My parents don't react, they assess. When Adam and I pulled into the driveway that Christmas Eve, the house looked exactly the same as when I'd left for college. The same cracked driveway, the same dead potted plant my mother insisted she'd revive someday, the same heavy feeling in my chest as I stepped out of the car. Adam squeezed my hand. Ready? Not even a little, I whispered. Inside, my parents froze for half a second when they saw him. A subtle widening of the eyes, a quick exchange of glances. They weren't expecting someone like him. Adam had this warm, approachable presence that felt like sunlight. My family was more like shades half drawn. My mom recovered first. Oh, you must be Adam. He smiled and offered her a small bouquet. For you, Mrs. Warren. Thank you for having me. It startled her. No one had ever brought my mother flowers. She didn't know whether to smile or panic. Dad clapped Adam awkwardly on the shoulder and muttered something about making yourself at home. At least he tried. But I could already feel Olivia's eyes burning into me from across the room. She was perched on the couch like a queen, surveying her realm, wineglass in hand, perfectly styled hair falling around her shoulders. When she saw us walk in, her expression flickered. Surprise, then annoyance, then something sharper. Threatened. She didn't say hello. Dinner was a circus of forced politeness. The dining room buzzed with conversation, lights reflecting off the polished table, silverware clinking. Adam fit right in, not by trying, but simply by being himself. He complimented my mom's cooking, asked my dad about his retirement plans, joked with my cousins. He made everyone laugh without even trying. I sat there watching him, wondering for the first time in my life if maybe I didn't have to carry everything alone. Then I glanced at Olivia. She looked like she wanted to flip the entire table. At first, she kept her bitterness subtle, whispering behind her wine glass to a cousin, rolling her eyes, leaning back dramatically every time Adam spoke. But as the wine flowed, so did her hostility. The room went quiet around dessert when she suddenly leaned forward, voice too loud, too sharp. So, Cecile, are you and Adam, serious? Adam took my hand. I didn't even hesitate. Yes, I said firmly. We are. A few relatives smiled. My aunt even teared up. But Olivia smirked. Wow. Bold choice. Her tone dripped venom. You sure he fits our family traditions? At first, I didn't understand. Then I realized. She wasn't talking about personality or values. She was talking about Adam's background, his roots, his ethnicity. The air went solid. Every fork paused in midair. I felt my face heat with anger so quickly I couldn't speak. But Adam? He didn't flinch. He met Olivia's eyes calmly and said, I was born here, Olivia. My great-grandparents came to America before your grandparents were even married. But even if that weren't the case, I don't think heritage makes someone less worthy of love or respect. Not in any family. The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was damning. Relatives nodded. Someone murmured, Good for him. My mom's expression tightened. My dad cleared his throat. Olivia looked like she'd been slapped. She spent the rest of the night sulking alone at the far end of the living room, refilling her glass every 15 minutes. Adam leaned close and whispered, Is she always like this? Sometimes worse, I whispered back. Later that night, back at my dorm, the anger still simmered beneath my skin. I texted Olivia a message so long it could have been a novella, telling her I was ashamed to call her my sister, that her behavior was disgusting, that I was done making excuses for her cruelty. Her reply was one word, same. It was the last thing she ever said to me for years. Time passed. Adam and I graduated, built careers. He asked me to marry him after a quiet dinner in our favorite little ramen place, and I said yes before he'd even finished the sentence. Our wedding was beautiful. Soft lighting, live string quartet, delicate floral arch. His family covered most of the cost, despite our protests. They just wanted us to have something special. My parents came. They looked around at the venue, the guests, the decor, and something in my mother's eyes shifted. A mix of shock, envy, and calculation. They learned very quickly that Adam's family came from money. Old money. And suddenly, for the first time ever, I could feel my parents reevaluating me, not loving me, not appreciating me, evaluating me. After the wedding, they asked about our finances. I shouldn't have told them we were doing well. I shouldn't have told them anything. 2 years later, the phone rang with urgent calls, over and over and over. Cecile, we need to talk. It's important. Please come over as soon as you can. I thought someone had died. I rushed over after work. exhausted, worried, confused. Instead, my parents sat me down in their living room and, after thanking me profusely for the $3,000 I'd been sending them every month, they said the words that marked the beginning of the end. "Your sister has been dealing with infertility," my mom said softly. Dad added, "and she wants to try IVF. It costs $25,000. As her sister, we expect you to help." Expect. They didn't ask, they demanded. I just stared at them. "You want me to pay for Olivia's IVF?" Mom nodded tearfully. "She deserves to be a mother, Cecile, and since you don't have kids, the least you can do is help your sister bring a grandchild into this family." The least I could do. My lungs felt too small, my voice barely worked. "I haven't spoken to her in years," I said. "She made my life hell." "That's the past," my dad snapped. "This is family." I felt the temperature in the room shift. Something ugly was coming, something I couldn't quite name yet. But I was about to find out. My parents stared at me with this strange mix of entitlement and disappointment, like I was a malfunctioning ATM that had suddenly decided it didn't want to dispense cash today. I took a breath and forced my voice to stay even. "I'm not giving Olivia $25,000 as a gift," I said, "but if she really needs the money, I'm willing to loan it to her, with a written agreement, a contract." The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Mom's face twisted in outrage. "A contract? Cecile, are you out of your mind?" Dad pushed himself up straighter in his chair. "We raised you better than this selfishness." Selfish. It was always the same script with them. Whenever I set a boundary, even a reasonable one, they acted like I'd committed a moral crime. I folded my hands in my lap. I worked for my money, I budget, I save. I'm not giving Olivia $25,000 just because you think I owe her something. Mom scoffed. "Oh, please, you and Adam live comfortably. You had that fancy wedding. You don't need to count pennies." And there it was. The resentment they'd been hiding ever since they saw Adam's family at the wedding. Ever since they realized I wasn't the poor, quiet daughter they'd always assumed I'd be. "You think I married rich," I said quietly. "You think that's why I have what I have." Mom didn't deny it. Dad didn't look at me. Instead, he muttered, "We're not asking for the world. We're asking for you to be a good sister." Good sister. Translation. Sacrifice yourself, again, for Olivia. For a moment, I genuinely thought I might cry. Not from sadness, from sheer, blazing disappointment. "I'm leaving," I said, rising from the couch. Mom blocked my path. "Cecile, sit down. We're not done." "Oh, I'm done," I said, more than done. I walked toward the hallway, heart pounding, head buzzing. Something in my gut was pulling at me. An instinct, a warning, a whisper. "Check the money. Something isn't right." "I need the bathroom," I said. I didn't wait for their response. Once inside, I locked the door, splashed some water on my face, then opened it just an inch, listening. Their voices were low, urgent, whispering. My suspicion solidified. I slipped toward their bedroom. My dad's phone was charging on the nightstand. I hesitated. What I was about to do wasn't right. But something in me knew, if I walked out without answers, I'd regret it. I picked up the phone. It wasn't locked. And the first thing I saw, the very first message thread, was my dad and Olivia. I tapped it open. Payment after payment after payment. 1-800. Every single month. For 2 years. My throat closed. My fingers went numb. All this time, while calling me selfish, while demanding more, while acting like I owed Olivia, my parents had been taking the money Adam and I sent to help them and giving most of it straight to Olivia. My chest felt tight. My vision blurred. 2 years of lies. 2 years of manipulation, 2 years of me bending over backward to help my parents, thinking I was rebuilding something with them. And the entire time, I was just bankrolling the golden child's lifestyle. I put the phone down and walked back toward the living room. I didn't run. I didn't tremble. I was ice. My parents looked up when they saw me. They knew. They saw it in my face. "What did you do?" my mom whispered. I didn't sit down this time. "I asked you what you did with the money I gave you," I said. "You lied to my face. For 2 years. Dad's jaw tightened. "Cecile." "Shut up," I said. Both of them froze. I had never spoken to them like that. Not once in my entire life. Mom swallowed hard. "We only did what any parents would do. Olivia is struggling. She doesn't make as much money as you. We thought it was right to help her." I laughed. Sharp, ugly, disbelieving. "You stole from me," I said. "You manipulated me. You guilt-tripped me. You made me feel like a terrible daughter when the entire time you were funneling my money to someone who bullied me for years." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "We are your parents. That money was for the family." "No," I snapped. "That money was for you, to help you, and you used it to help the one person who has made my life hell." They didn't deny it. They didn't talk. They just stared at me, waiting, like this was a scene we could resolve with a hug and a forced apology. But something inside me had finally snapped. "I'm done paying for you," I said. "I'm done being used. I'm done being your backup plan because Olivia keeps failing." My mom lunged up from the couch. "You can't do that." My voice came out steady, dead steady. "Watch me." I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. "You walk out that door," Dad shouted, "and don't expect this family to forgive you." I turned the knob, paused, looked back over my shoulder. "Forgive me?" I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "After what you've done? After what you've been doing for years?" They didn't respond. They couldn't. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and finally felt the crushing weight of their expectations slide off my shoulders. But the moment I reached my car, my phone started buzzing relentlessly. Calls, texts, voicemails. My parents begging, my parents yelling, my parents guilt-tripping, my parents threatening. And I realized something chilling. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing my money. I drove home shaking, a storm of anger and heartbreak swirling inside me. I told Adam everything the moment I walked through the door. And when I showed him the screenshots I'd taken from my dad's phone, his expression hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "They've been using you," he said quietly, "for years, and it ends now." But I didn't know then, I couldn't have known, that the next person to blow everything wide open would be Olivia herself. 2 quiet weeks passed. 2 weeks of blocked calls, guilty voicemails, and long paragraphs from my mother about how family should stick together. 2 weeks of my father alternating between begging and accusing. 2 weeks of silence from Olivia, eerily silent, the kind of calm you only get right before a storm. Adam and I tried to settle back into our routines, but something in me felt raw, exposed, like every childhood wound had been cracked open again. I kept replaying everything, every lie, every guilt trip, every dismissal. One night, while I was brushing my hair before bed, my phone buzzed with a notification from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was Olivia. A message so long it filled the entire screen, and every line was uglier than the last. She called me selfish, a spoiled child, a pathetic excuse of a daughter. She claimed she'd always disliked me, that she should have been harder on me growing up, and that I deserved every bit of how she treated me. Then came the real venom. She said I was a gold digger, that I'd married Adam for his money, that my success wasn't real, that I didn't deserve the life I had. And worst of all, "You don't need your money. You don't have kids. Our family deserves it more than you ever will." I stood frozen, staring at the words until they blurred. And then, without warning, the tears came. Hot, blinding, years of pain boiling over. Adam walked in and found me shaking. "What happened?" I handed him the phone. He read the message once, then again. And the third time, his jaw clenched so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. "She thinks she can say this to you?" he said quietly. Not angry, cold. Then he took my phone, sat on the edge of the bed, and said something I didn't expect. "I'm done watching them hurt you." Before I could ask what he meant, he started typing. Within 10 minutes, Adam created a messenger group chat titled Family Accountability. And then he added, "My parents, Olivia, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, 6 cousins, my grandmother, and even Olivia's husband." It was basically every adult relative we had. My stomach dropped. "Adam, wait." But it was too late. He began posting. One by one, he uploaded screenshots of everything. The message where my parents demanded $25,000, proof they took $3,000 from me monthly. The payment logs showing $1,800 funneled to Olivia's entire hate-filled message. Then Adam sent one final text to the group. "Cecile has been financially supporting her parents for 2 years. Behind her back, they secretly gave most of that money to Olivia, the same sister who bullied her relentlessly growing up. This ends today. If any of you ever pressure her for money again, you will deal with me next, and I have no problem hiring lawyers." Then he put his phone down calmly, like he'd just paid a utility bill. I sat there in complete shock. Within seconds, the family chat exploded. "My Aunt Teresa, what am I reading?" My Uncle Mark, "This is disgusting. How could you do this to Cecile?" My cousin Jenna, "I knew Olivia bullied her, but never this." My grandmother, sweet, soft-spoken, never curse in her life grandma. "Shame on all 3 of you. Apologize to Cecile immediately." Comment after comment. Shock after shock. Rage directed at the people who had hurt me my whole life. But the most surprising? Olivia's husband. He wrote, "I had no idea you talked to her like this, Olivia. This is appalling." That must have pierced her armor because Olivia finally typed. That message was taken out of context. The group chat roared back. Everyone saw through her instantly. No more lies, no more victim pity plays, no more tears to manipulate the room. For the first time in my life, everyone finally believed me. My parents tried to defend themselves, of course. Dad, we were just helping our other daughter in need. Mom, Cecile has more than enough to spare. But Adam shot back with, stealing from your child isn't helping. Lying to her isn't helping. Conditioning her to feel guilty for existing isn't helping. And then he said what I never could. You're not entitled to Cecile's money, or her life, or her forgiveness. A silence followed. A long, heavy, humiliating silence. Then, one by one, the relatives left the chat. My parents were the last ones standing. They didn't say another word. The next day, I heard from my Aunt Teresa that Olivia had been dragged into a Come to Jesus meeting by several family members. Apparently there were tears, arguments, storming out, a shattered wine glass. I didn't care. My parents tried calling, then texting, then calling again. First to apologize, then to guilt trip, then to beg. I didn't respond. Eventually, the messages stopped. Last night, Adam and I sat on our sofa, legs tangled, a blanket around us, watching some dumb cooking show neither of us cared about. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Not healed, those wounds run deep, but lighter. I leaned on his shoulder. Did I do the right thing? I whispered, cutting them off? Adam kissed my temple. You chose peace, and I'm proud of you. We made a plan to start therapy together, not because anything was wrong between us, but because generational trauma doesn't magically disappear just because you finally took out the trash. I don't know what will happen with my parents, or Olivia, or the family now that the truth is out. But I do know this. I am done paying to stay in a family that never wanted me whole